Star Citizen's mega patch that has been in the works for literally years is finally here on the live servers and everyone can play it. And if you're a fan of the game, scrolling through this feature list, you might begin to salivate with all of the massive changes. There's a new top tech character customizer, massive distribution centers with deep and complex internal layouts, a super cool new star map, or rather an everything map. There's new creatures that inhabit the planets, a new Moby Glass backend and updated front end, new heads-up display, new player interaction system, new quick looting interfaces, new missions, a new EVA system for flying through space, new Vulkan graphics API and DLSS and other resolution scaling, better looking clouds, major backend server changes like actually having a separate replication layer and server crash recovery, plus tons of new content in Arena Commander, from racing to fighting and new ways of flying spaceships. And what I just said is the abridged version with the amount of content in this patch. What does this mean for Star Citizen? Well, in the short term, it's business as usual. A patch that isn't quite ready for massive public consumption and all the new features being hampered by major server issues. However, in the long term, it feels like we're getting to experience the foundational systems for Star Citizen's actual design rather than just placeholder assets that we've been playing with for years. Let's get into the details. Alright, so first let me just say that this patch is way too big to give a proper review on it. All I can do is give a first impressions of sampling some of the features at best. The patch released on Friday, and not only have I not had enough time to test everything, but the server performance is just making the testing process extremely slow. Upon loading into 3.23 live for the first time, my room door wouldn't even open. I quit and loaded back in and was able to get into my room, but then the mission system stopped functioning. I couldn't accept any missions, so I switched to an EU server and got mildly better server performance, but I just wanted to give you that warning. If you're an early adopter with this patch, well, it plays like an early patch. I do think that 3.23 is the beginning of a much improved Star Citizen experience, but it's kind of like opening a bottle of wine. You really got to let it breathe a little bit before enjoying. Now let me walk you through some of the stuff that I got excited about playing this live patch for the first time. The distribution centers, these massive corporate-owned complexes that pepper the surface of Microtech and Hurston, offer impressive views from the outside, but even more impressive when seen from the inside. Massive winding mazes of rooms, corridors, vents, hidden passages, bulkheads, security checkpoints await anyone who managed to get a cool PvE mission here. Now, getting those PvE missions requires you to pick the right one or building up the reputation for certain things, but holy crap, do the layout and visuals just beat the heck out of the typical bunker running mission. I can see a ton of fun gameplay occurring here, and I believe that these locations will serve as kind of the major pillars for PvE content moving forward, not to mention PvP will be mixed in here as well. Sadly though, I can't comment on actually running the missions here yet, mostly just exploring the aftermath of someone else's raid or whatever they were up to here. But even opening my Moby Glass map and rotating around the facility, I could barely even understand the scale of it. It looks so massive, and I'm excited about a mission that takes you deep into the depths of one of these facilities, fighting your way in and fighting your way out. It looks like it's going to be an absolute blast. Now, speaking of PvE, well, my time in the verse was met with a lot of bugs and failures. Trying to engage enemy AI was a bunch of teleporting on their part, and then my weapon sometime not equipping, not being able to switch to it, and when I got shot, med pens failing to activate while I just slowly bled to death. That said, the new looting UI is extremely cool, and it's very quick to pick all the medical supplies and extra ammo off of a fallen enemy, though I am sad to see the old legacy inventory system still kind of tied into everything behind the scenes. Hopefully that backend gets some nice quality of life updates as well. Now, when it comes to ship-to-ship combat in the Persistent Universe, I did try a larger encounter, but the targeting system was bugging out, not letting me lock onto the closest ship. I tested this further in Arena Commander, and targeting was working fine there, so I think it was really due to server performance stuff happening. That said, the new combat and master modes is very interesting. I definitely feel more of a push towards ship classes and speed gating to help ships fit their role a bit better. It definitely detracts from some of the realistic space combat that we're having before in favor of, well, just making it a fun game that plays better. And so when you let off the afterburners, your ship will slow down. The result is that you have a lot more close quarter fighting and a lot less jousting in many situations. And I think it's a good foundation for CIG to actually build upon now, where they've been toying around with all these different kind of combat setups and balance ideas and never really committing to any of them. I feel like Master Modes could finally be that commitment to, this is what combat in the game is going to be like, we're sticking with it, we're going to balance it and make it work. It comes with a new general aiming system, but also a new precision mode now for zooming in and precisely hitting specific ship components, but at the cost of a slower rate of fire, essentially slower damage output. This feature is going to be great for enhancing the visuals of space combat and actually seeing the details, but it seems much better suited for engaging larger, tankier ships at further ranges, like in a small ship where you want to keep your distance and plink away at their components. I am excited to play with this a bit more, especially in the battles that involve those bigger, tankier ships. Now, the new player interaction system is a great update, and then it makes me almost not think about it for most things that I need to interact with. Just tapping F now makes you do the thing that you wanted to do on 90% of the items in the universe. It does still need some work though. On the hover train in Area 18, the lower screen prompt would say something like, do off-screen action, and then hitting F plops you into a seat at random. I think stuff like that ends up being a bit weird since the off-screen action could be anything. You don't really know what you're committing to by tapping F, and honestly just having you engage with something that you're not even looking at or aware of seems like it's going to lead to problems down the road. And then we have elevators with some of the most used button panels in the entire game. They still don't default to the obvious choices, which I would expect them to, like taking you to the lobby if you're spawning in a space station, or just automatically defaulting to the hangar that your ship is in if you're going down to a ship hangar. Those types of quality of life upgrades to the interaction system would go a long way towards making the most common actions that much quicker. But in general, it seems like Star Citizen has finally come full circle back to a more accessible interaction system that still has the depth of its prior system. The new star map and mini map is such a great update to the game as well. Setting your destination and just exploring your basic environment is such a nice quality of life upgrade. I think that's going to be huge for new players as well. It could definitely be a bit more intuitive with more on-screen button prompts for hotkeys that do things. Hitting R will actually set a route to a destination you have selected, but if you're trying to mouse over the set destination things, sometimes the menu disappears and it's a bit quirky on that front, so it needs a little bit more tweaking. The new quantum travel interface is also way better. No more endlessly calculating jump points only to have your targeting system randomly select a different location and start recalculating on that. And while that seems like a small update, having dealt with the nightmare UI of quantum travel for the past however many years, this is like one of my favorite quality of life updates. That said, I don't love the new UI icons for planetary surface points. It makes it way harder to find a space station or a city on the surface of a planet when all the icons are exactly the same until your crosshair basically mouses over them. This feels like a form over function update for the UI, and I hope they re-look at this aspect. Now, graphically, there appears to be a ton of little nuanced changes to the game, which aren't all specifically mentioned. I think they were just kind of added over time and got lumped together in a major update. New cloud rendering is sort of one of the bigger mentioned features, but we now have Vulkan API and upscalers like DLSS worked into the graphics settings, which is potentially huge for Star Citizen's performance. Now, you can enable Vulkan, but it does have beta listed right next to it. Of course, I enabled it because I've been waiting on Vulkan forever, and while I was quantum traveling to a planet, my PC hard crashed, which is not something that I like to do to my computer. So I disabled Vulkan, went back to DirectX 11, and played at 4K with DLSS turned on. Now, sadly, if the CPU is the bottleneck on your computer for Star Citizen, which will be most people, then DLSS isn't going to make a huge performance difference. However, if your GPU is your bottleneck though, it should, in theory, be a big performance update. Let me know in the comments if DLSS or another upscaler with this patch has made a big difference for you. Star Citizen still needs more main thread optimizations, and frankly, stuff like frame gen could be the best bet for getting higher FPS in Star Citizen down the road. It's nice that Vulkan is currently an option in the game, but I've been hearing similar reports of it not working particularly well with graphical artifacts or crashing, so I look forward to seeing it upgraded in the future so I can use it. Now, as for all of the other features in this patch, of which there are many, I will continue to test them out and play more. This is a massive patch and I look forward to getting further into it. I hope this public stress test allows CIG to really get things dialed in for the upcoming free flight for the game, where basically the servers are going to get overloaded even further. This could be really bad for people's first impressions of the game, or it could be great depending on when things get dialed in. The next major step for CIG will be server meshing, which has already been tested at scale on the PTU, and oddly, I feel confident in saying that we probably will get it in this year. Which I never thought I would be predicting that CIG actually gets a feature in when they say they're going to get it in, but the feature progress so far this year has been substantial. Still very rough around the edges, but it is coming along and I'm excited for the future. What do you guys think of this 3.23 live patch? Did you play over the weekend? Has it been stable for you? Have you had a different experience compared to me? I know some people who get into great servers have a great time with it. I just haven't been able to get into one myself. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave me a like. If you want to see more content like it, subscribe, hit that notification bell to beat the YouTube algorithm with me. And up next, check out my space game devlog. A lot of things in Star Citizen inspired me to make my own video game, and I'm working on it right now. Check it out here. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.